LinkedIn, however you may be watching, today's a great day. It's going to be a special day because one of my greatest pals in the world has made time to join me here today, and I'm so happy. Let's bring him on. It's my pal in Nashville, Tennessee. Hello, Joe Calloway, the man who is a category of one.
Scott McKain, America, and around the world.
And the first guy to say hello to us online here is Paul Rosser. So we're global, man. I'm telling you, we are global.
You can't top that.
Charles Coachman says hi to ho, everybody. So that's great. Hello, Dwayne Long. Typically, Joe, what we do for the first couple minutes, let everybody jump on and get on the call, and got a lot of folks saying hi. Robert Caro, Ted Stark says, hey, Rita, good to see you as always. Just everybody getting on the call here, and I'm sure glad that they do. This has really been something. Every day at noon, and Joe, I know that you know this. Jeffrey Wolf says hello. I know that you know this, but every day at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern, I've been doing this, and every day it's like the audience keeps going and growing, and really, really something in terms of people just looking for some positive messages. And
I've been there. Your last 2 shows, two guys I never heard of, yeah. and I left early. But
in case you don't know, we used to have a thing called the 5 Friends. It was a program that we did. We're still friends. We just don't do the program anymore. But it was Joe Calloway and Randy Pennington and Mark Sanborn and Larry Winget and me, and we still get together and do our little Bourbon Airs thing, but we don't have the program. Hey, I want to say hi to some folks here real quick before we get started. Joe, Pam Burke says hello. Marlo says hi. My sister Shelley's on. Says hey, Joe. Let's see who else. Talene, great to see you. Peter, watching in Europe. Gosh. So great to see you. My college buddy Mike Schaefer is watching in Florida. So we got a whole bunch of folks on the line. Joe, I'm going to start with an interesting question here for you, I hope. I was just on a podcast. I was just interviewed for a podcast, and the interviewer asked me, Tim Gillette asked a really, really interesting question, which was, how much during a time like this does your core message need to change? And I'll tell you what I responded after you share. What do you think? During a time like this, how much does your core message change?
What popped in my head was, if you were to ask a version of that question to a business and say, during a time like this, how much do your core values need to change? I would suggest that if you've got the right values, they don't need to change at all. That Absolutely. In fact, it's the values that will get you through the change. Tactics and strategies, oh my God, who knows? But your values are, they're the true north on your compass. Now, as far as message, I certainly can't change my expertise by snapping my fingers. And so I think what I have to do, here's my approach to that. How can I take what I know and what I believe is of value and apply it to today's reality, to the client's reality? And so I don't see that for most people or most businesses, their core message would change. The application of it might change.
That is why we are on the same wavelength, pal. I said he was talking about the world of content creators, speakers, trainers, and so forth. But I said I think that's part of how you're going to tell an amateur from a pro, is that the core message stays the same. The tactics about how you apply that are going to shift and change.
Yeah.
But the core message has to stay the same, or else you've got a pretty lousy core message, right? I mean, if it can't get you through these times, then maybe you need to reevaluate that core message. But I used you as an example, our friend Larry Winget and others as examples. Our core message isn't changing.
No.
Because the very things we talk about, now is kind of the test about the application of that message and its real value in a changing marketplace.
Yeah, I agree.
So, how are you dealing with all this that's going on?
I'm staying surprisingly busy. I'm blessed beyond reason because I happen to live with three other people that I really, really like, and we like hanging out with each other. That would be Annette and our two daughters. We've got two girls that are. Jess is a senior in high school. Kate's an eighth grader. So they're in their rooms going to school online all day. Annette's a teacher, so she's in the dining room teaching all day. And I've got my fingers in, as you know, Scott, 3 or 4 different businesses, and I've actually been pretty busy with those the last few days. I'm trying to listen to new music every day. I'm trying to learn something every day, trying to find a way to be useful every day. So, yeah, pretty good.
You know, Joe, I hope you don't mind me asking this, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time. I know that John Prine used to be a neighbor, and I'm wondering if of yours, and I'm wondering if you could share just some insight on why did someone who didn't have hit records, the staying power that he had, and the response to his passing, the emotion that has generated, is more significant than some pop star that had, multi-platinum albums. Why is that? What about him rang so true with so many people?
Yeah, just extraordinary. And what's interesting is so many artists who did have multi-platinum albums, if you would have said, who do you think are the best songwriters in America, a whole bunch of them would have said, well, John Prine.
Yeah.
So he was a musician's musician. But I think, I read a post today by a guy who said that he always played John Prine songs for his daughter as she was growing up. And the reason he could do that is you only needed to know 3 or 4 chords and you could play John Prine songs. And I think that's part of the key to it. Prine, golly, his stuff was so simple, and yet in its simplicity, which made it so accessible, oh my God, he told some kind of complex stories that just got to the core of the human experience from a human side, because he lived up until about a year ago. He and Fiona lived just down the street, and they moved because there's another country music person on our street. And he said once she moved in, all the tour buses started coming by and stopping at his house, and he needed to find a place with a bigger yard. So he moved. But I would see him in the post office and at Kroger. Scotty, I think I told you guys this. One of my favorite moments was I was in, I think it was Kroger, and Prine was on the same aisle, and I said, I always called him Mr. Prine. I said, hi, Mr. Prine. And he smiled. He was a nice guy. And on the background music that plays in the store, oh my gosh, they were playing Bonnie Raitt singing Angel from Montgomery. And as I looked at him, I just nodded up at the ceiling, and he just smiled and listened, nodded his head, went about his business. But John was just the sweetest natured person and from another planet as far as being able to write a song.
But you hit on something there that also ties in with one of your books about the simplicity of the songs, which of course ties in with a huge seller that you had called Keep It Simple.
Yeah, well, there's something, boy, I've just become a real fan of that principle. And in my work now, you talk about my core message, Scotty. One of my core messages is, I don't care who I'm talking to. I can say, tell me this. Are you making it way more complicated than it needs to be? And I don't care who it is. And me too. I'm the worst.
Oh, yeah.
My God, I overthink everything.
Well, we often teach the message that we need to, that we need to hear, that we need to learn, don't we? I mean, it's just part of this process.
It really is. But yeah, I think a key to being a great songwriter, a great author, darn near a great anything is make it as simple as possible. There's a quote from somebody like in the 1700s, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, and I don't remember who to attribute it to, but it didn't come from me. And he said, "It's not finished when you've added all that you can add to it. It's finished when you've taken away all that you can take away from it."
Wow.
And I know, Scott, like with my website, I would put so much crap on my website. It's like, well, this is cool, I'll put that on there. This is cool too, I'll put that on there. And I remember one time I try to look at my website about once every 18 months, and more often than not, I just tear it down and start over. But one time I looked at it and I thought, I don't see how anybody can possibly do business with me. This is so stupid, because I've layered on so much crap trying to appeal to everybody and show how smart I am, instead of just going, no, here's who I work with, here's what I do. Does that make sense to you or not? Just strip it down.
I am certain that Shelley, who designs my websites, is nodding profusely right now, because we did the same thing. We thought, hey, because somebody might be interested in this, we better put it on there, and so we tried to just throw the kitchen sink at the website, and she's so great at tracking all the numbers and knowing all that. And one of the things we found was that people came on it and they didn't stay on it because it was confusing. There was too much there. And we've, on my website, she's stripped it down to really essentials, and it's really easy to follow. And now the people clicking and then getting engaged are higher than they've ever been, not because of what we added, but because we took away, to your point.
I tell you, I've just become such a big fan of and believer in, and that's why I try to teach it with my clients: simplify, get clarity. And if you can get clarity on what it is that you're trying to do and what's important, then you can focus and I'm a big proponent of, you don't need to do 1,000 things a day to be successful. You need to do probably 3. But if you can identify the 3 key things, that if you get them right every day and you get up and you do those, and of course there's other stuff that comes up.
Sure.
But if you wake up and say, I know there's 3 things I got to tend to today. I got to tend to these 3 things. And if I do that well enough, I'll be fine. I've just seen it work too many times to not be a believer in it.
Let's catch up on a couple of messages that we got here. By the way, Carrie Lorenz is watching on Instagram and is waving at us. So, one of our faves. Charles Coachman is nice enough to say you've all helped sell a lot of books, bourbon, and incredible wisdom.
I don't know that we have helped sell a lot of bourbon.
We bought a lot of bourbon. I don't know how much we've sold. But let's see. Marlo says, so good. Just learned that lesson in biblical terms today about what you said about the core message. Jeffrey Wolf says, all too often as a recovering engineer, overcomplicating is an ongoing challenge. Paul Rosser says, perfection is achieved, not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And it's Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He's quoting there.
Yes. Thank you, Paul.
Lisa Patrick says, keep it simple, stupid. Landing pages are great places for the handful of other resources you're trying to drive traffic to. And she also just put Pappy Van Winkle ! Carrie has a glass of bourbon emoji that she's just shared with us. So, and hi to Faye as well. So, folks getting involved, participating here. And of course, we love that. Joe, it struck me what you were saying about having those specific things. Yesterday, Mark Sandbarn called it a daily punch list. It's part of what we need, I think, in these times, because one of the things we've been talking about here is how many of us are going 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden we've hit this brick wall. And how we manage our days and how we manage our time is really essential, not only to get things done, but to help keep our mental state, our attitude where it needs to be.
two things come to mind for me. One is I'm a productivity junkie. If I'm not engaged in creating, it throws me into a tailspin. And at the same time, these are strange times. And there are some of us that have blocks of time that we've never had before. And of course, everybody's saying that. A lot of people are saying that. And for me, I'm having to learn to be okay with not being absolutely nose to the grindstone productive all day long. Yeah. That I can also be productive by, for example, doing what I did today and going to a link that June, my good buddy, sent me, and I posted it on Facebook. I don't know if you saw it yet. A link to a band, a guy and a gal here in Nashville called Striking Matches. Okay, everybody, if you want your day to be more productive, after this is over, go to Facebook, or go to YouTube rather, go look up Striking Matches Crossroads, and then put on some headphones, crank it up, and you will be transported. But that helps my day. Something new to listen to, something new to read. I'm reading a lot. I think a lot of us are. Articles. I've gone back to Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing, because I'm trying to come up with my next move.
Sure.
And oh my God, Scott, if ever there was a time, if any of us have ever thought, boy, if I were to do something else, what might it be? Or what could I do in addition to what I'm doing now? Or how might I redefine my business? If you're ever going to do that,
now's the time. Yeah.
Now's the time.
And
stuff like Godin's This is Marketing, it really makes me rethink the way I look at my business, or how I might launch a new facet of my business. But I do think, and I agree with Mark about the punch list, that it helps to be purposeful and get up every day with a little bit of a roadmap as to where you're going to go.
And one of the things that occurs to me as well is that 15 years from now, parents are going to be hearing from their kids some things that happened during this time and what a precious time and gift this has been.
Yeah.
I can just see Kate saying to you, Dad, do you remember when we, and it's something that happened during this period of time where you have more time together, everybody not going in their different directions, and sports to play and school events to attend, or, meetings to go to, or, whatever. So it's really a special time.
Les, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing things like this. We're cooking together.
Yeah.
We're going out and taking drives together just to look at the cherry blossoms. And so, and it's you used a great word. It's in the midst of what is for a lot of people. And let me tell you something, Scott, I totally acknowledge, and Annette and I, and the girls too, we are intentional about recognizing that we live in somewhat of a bubble.
Yeah.
We're inconvenienced. And Jess is going to miss her senior graduation, and that's sad and all that. But we really try to pay attention to what's going on with people that are up against it right now. And how can we in some way be supportive of those people? Because like I say, for us, it's all an inconvenience so far because we're all healthy. But man, I think I just think it's a good human thing to do to not forget that there's some people that are, to state the obvious, in real pain right now, in a real struggle.
And many of those folks are people like servers at our favorite restaurants. You're in Nashville, I'm in Vegas. I don't know that any two cities, in terms of the economic impact and the percentage of the number of employees who are dependent on a gig, our two cities have to be about the highest concentration of that in the United States. And there's a lot of folks that are challenged and are hurting right now.
Yeah, there really are. But there's ways to help.
Yeah.
I mean, I contributed yesterday. A buddy of mine, you might even know him, Randy Rayburn, who owns Sunset Grill,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Know who he is. Yep.
well, you know those restaurants.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a fundraiser on Facebook to raise money for his employees.
Yeah.
That he's had to furlough, and all of the customers, man, we are pouring in, helping raise some money for those folks because. So yeah, there's things that we can all do from sewing masks to the stuff that we all see all the time.
Yeah, I just got a note here from Ricardo. He wrote a terrific article about Medtronic and how they are putting their people first, and I shared that, and he just posted a note. Thanks for sharing the article. But I think we need to be doing that. I mean, we need to be helping. We need to be sharing these great stories. Lisa Patrick says, move what's been at the side of your desk to the forefront, repurpose. It's really good. Pam Burke says, she's trying to do 3 items a day, but she's wondering, does blueberry muffins, chocolate chip cookies, and veggie soup count as the 3?
Pam, I'll be right over.
if we could, we would, right? So.
Actually, I fill most of my day with eating too much and touching my face.
Yeah, little did I know the 3 things I like best, right? Exactly. Were bars and touching my face,
non-essential businesses,
and being a non-essential business, But it's really challenging, but yet we've talked about this before, Joe. But it's the old political term from the 1800s: never waste a good crisis.
Yeah,
and we've got to figure out what we can do. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna and ignore the pain that people are under, as you have talked about. But how do we help, and how do we make the best of it?
The watchword for me, more than any other, and I'm not saying it should be anybody else's. Everybody's got their own way to do what they're doing. For me, I wake up, and one of my main goals every day is, how can I be useful? And for me, it's one of the ways is to, today, earlier, I posted an article on social media, 2 or 3 places, and it's an idea that has been really, really helpful and successful in my business. And I try to do that every couple of days. And the thing is, I don't want to just put some crap up that just adds to the noise or is just filler. It's like, what are the best ideas that I've ever used? And it's probably something that somebody else passed on to me that I can share with other people. And I've loved getting emails from people in our business and others who write me and say, man, I was able to immediately use that idea, and here's how I used it. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. That's not a big deal, and there are tons of people doing that. But that helps make for a good day for me, is if I can just put something out there that somebody can truly use.
I love it. I love it. That would be a great goal for all of us. Just share one thing that really works. Dan Weltman wants to know if anybody's up for a 5 Friends reunion. I would be. I love it.
We kind of have an ongoing reunion. If people knew how much we email and talk to each other, I think the phrase "get a life" might
come into play. Yeah, I really haven't talked about that. I had Randy and Mark on, as you know, and none of us mentioned the fact that we email 10 times a day. Would you guess?
Sometimes, I mean, easily.
Yeah.
People say, "What do you guys email about?" Everything.
It's stream of consciousness, isn't it? It's just
politics, food, bourbon, friends, work, and it's a great thing. I tell you, I do think times like these can help you appreciate your real friends, your best friends. One of the things that we've been able to do with our group, because we've got, I think it's fair to say, some fairly strong personalities, and we're all somewhat outspoken.
Randy just posted, there's 3 of us here. Randy's watching. So.
Yeah, there you go. Like I was on the show yesterday, watching the show, Mark, and Tuesday with Randy. But we can, for example, absolutely knock heads. And totally disagree, and yet at the flash point, somebody will usually throw in something really goofy, stupid, funny, and it's like, oh, we're all okay. Or we'll come along behind and say, hey, that thing I posted or that I said in our email exchange the other day was absolutely ridiculous, and I was dumb for saying it. And the other person will say, well, of course you were dumb for saying it. And I knew you'd realize it.
I've had you guys say, yes, we knew it was stupid when you posted it. We were just waiting to see how long it'd take for you to recognize how stupid it was when you posted it.
To catch up.
Well, but we all should have friends like that, right? I mean, and now is the time to, if you're not doing that, now is the time to be doing that, to connect with each other.
And to be able to say, to be able to joke around and have fun with, and to be able to say, guys, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I'm in a bad spot. And know, not that they're going to try to fix it for you, but that they're there.
Yeah.
They are there. And if you need them to be here with you, they'll get on a plane, a car, a mule, whatever, and they'll be there. And I tell you, it's good to have friends like that to be able to lean into, especially at a time like this.
Paul Rosser just posted, if the 5 friend reunions happen, he's bringing a bottle of Pappy.
I'd say we should make that happen.
That kind of puts us over the line, doesn't it? I mean,
that's a...
Well, Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and the things that you've talked about here are really compelling and powerful in terms of how we need to be thinking, how we need to be approaching, how we need to be. You were talking about reading. It's funny. There's a guy I worked with in TV 20 years ago, and he wrote a novel. He was always wanting to, write his novel. He was the anchor at WHAS Louisville, Jim Mitchell. And it's one of those things I always wanted to read what he wrote. And I didn't even realize it was St. Martin's Press published it. I mean, it's a
nice,
prestigious. It's terrific. It's a border agent who gets wounded in a situation on the border in Tucson and becomes a private detective. So it is a detective, kind of a Harry Bosch-ish kind of thing. It is so good, and it on one hand, it bugs me that a friend of mine wrote this incredible book that I hadn't read, which I should have, but I'm also appreciative of this time that I was able to do so. And
absolutely.
And so what we have to do are things like that. What are those things, as Lisa said here, what are those things that's been on the side of your desk for so long that you can now position at the front and get done?
By the way, a quick caveat to go along with, and I say this on a lot of the stuff that I post, and I'll certainly say it now. The way I do it is the way I do it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the way you should do it. And I always tell people, particularly when I'm advising colleagues about our business, you will never hear me say, this is the way you have to do it. No, this is the way I've done it. That may or may not be of some use to you. I hope it is. But there's 1,000 ways to do it. Pick the way that works for you. And it's not going to be exactly the way it works for me. So everybody's got to figure out their own thing.
For some reason, what popped in my head was Life of Brian, when Brian shouts, "You are all individuals." And the crowd goes, "Yes, we are all." But it's so true. I mean, I've just spent the call I was on before this. Part of what I was saying is at the end of the day, if you're trying to be someone else, that other person has a corner on that market.
They've already done it.
They've done it.
Peggy Noonan, the great writer that we're all a fan of, who says, when you're speaking, don't be slick. They've seen slick. Be you. They haven't seen that.
I love that.
Be you.
I love that. Hey, my friend, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks to Joe Calloway for being here today. Thank you to you for watching and being a part of this. It keeps growing every day. And the reason that it's growing is because you are here and because you are sharing it. and I'll have the replay of this will be posted on social media. So if you'll retweet or share or that, it really means the world. By the way, thanks to Pam Charles. Yeah, that's what makes UBS powerful. Is there we try to talk about the different ways of doing it. Randy, thank you for being the guest the other day. Paul, always great seeing you. Dan, everybody that's online. So for all the folks here on Instagram, for all the folks on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, thank you so much. I'll be back here again tomorrow at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, as always, and look forward to catching up with you then. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you soon.